All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're talking about Tesla's full self-driving version 14. This was supposed to be a massive software rewrite, the one that changed everything. But then it got pulled right at the last second. Let's get into what happened.
So picture this. It's one of the most hyped rollouts in the EV world, right? It's supposed to hit thousands of cars in early October. But then, on October 4th, just days before it goes live, bam, the whole thing screeches to a halt. The big question is, what on earth happened?
Well, it turns out that just days before the big launch, the AI team at Tesla found a bug, a last-minute glitch that pushed the whole release back. But look, this wasn't just any old software update. So the question becomes, why does a little delay on a project this big actually tell us something really important?
Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at that last-minute glitch. Then, we'll get into the quantum leap that is full-on V14 and what's really going on inside the new AI. After that, we'll talk about this sentient driving experience they're promising. And finally, tie it all together with the road to robotaxis.
All right, first up, that delay. Now, you can imagine a lot of Tesla owners were pretty frustrated, right? But this whole situation actually shines a light on something absolutely crucial: how Tesla handles software that's, incredibly powerful and, let's be honest, potentially dangerous.
So Musk pretty quickly framed this as a good thing, not a setback. And his point was simple. Finding a problem before it gets to you, the public, is always the right move. I mean, think about it. When you're dealing with software that's controlling a 2-ton car, catching a bug at the 11th hour isn't a failure. It's proof that your safety process is actually working the way it's supposed to. Okay, so the delay was all about caution. But what exactly is this update that needed so much care? What makes V14 so different from everything we've seen before? Because let me tell you, this is not just another small step. People are calling this a massive leap forward. And the key to this whole thing, really, is one number: 10. FSD version 14's neural network has 10 times more parameters than the last version. Now, what's a parameter? You can kind of think of them like connections in a brain. So this isn't just like adding a few more books to the shelf. No, this is like upgrading from your small local library to the Library of Congress. It just allows the car to process and understand a staggering amount of nuance and complexity out there on the road. And you can really see the evolution right here. Look, V12 was a total game changer, right? It brought in this end-to-end neural network, which basically means the car was learning to drive just by watching videos, like a human would. But V14 takes that foundation and just pours gasoline on it. It scales everything up massively, giving the car a much bigger brain to process tricky situations, make smarter calls, and, this is the big one, do it all with what Tesla claims is exponentially better safety.
But here's the catch. All that incredible new software needs some serious muscle to run it, and this is a really critical point. V14 only works on newer Teslas with the hardware for computer. We're talking about their latest, greatest, custom-built AI chip. The processing power it demands is it's too much for the older hardware. And that creates this pretty significant divide in the Tesla fleet, right? You've got the cars that can make this huge leap, and then you've got the ones that are basically stuck in the past. So, okay, a 10x bigger brain sounds impressive, but what does that actually do when the rubber hits the road? How does all of that extra horsepower translate into a smarter, safer drive? Let's dive in and take a look inside this new AI.
The whole process is actually pretty straightforward, but incredibly powerful. It all starts with the input. The car sees the world through all its cameras. Then comes the processing. And this is where that 10x bigger network really comes into play. It chews through all that complex visual data. And because it's so much bigger, it can handle those weird, ambiguous situations way better. And finally, you get the decision. A much more nuanced, more human-like choice on what to do next. And all this new brain power translates into some pretty amazing real-world skills. We're talking better perception in bad weather, smarter behavior at those awkward four-way stops where nobody knows who's supposed to go, and this new feature they're calling Perfect Autopark. And listen, that's not just a cool party trick. It's an absolutely essential piece of the puzzle for things like automated charging and, yep, you guessed it, their whole robotaxi dream.
But the goal here isn't just to build a car that can mechanically get from point A to point B. It's about creating a driving experience that feels, natural, intuitive, something you can actually trust. And that's where V14 is really trying to change the game entirely.
Okay, let's talk about the nag. If you've ever used FSD, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's that constant alert telling you to touch the steering wheel to prove you're still there. It can be super annoying. Well, a huge goal for V14 is to get rid of a lot of that.
Instead of making you touch the wheel, it's going to use the in-cabin camera to see if you're paying attention. The result? A much smoother, less jerky, and way more natural drive.
And that brings us to this pretty wild claim from Elon Musk. Now, let's be clear. The car is not actually becoming self-aware or anything like that. When he says sentient, he's talking about the feel of the drive. The goal is to make the car operate so smoothly, so intelligently, that it feels just as comfortable and predictable as riding with a really, really good human driver. But making the drive feel sentient isn't just about keeping current Tesla owners happy. Nope. This massive software update is a critical, foundational piece of a much, much bigger plan. We're talking about Tesla's most ambitious, maybe even world-changing vision, a fleet of autonomous robotaxis.
Now, with an update this huge, you can't just flip a switch for everyone. So Tesla is being smart about it, rolling it out in stages. Version 14.0 will go to a small group first just to see how it does in the wild. Based on that data, they'll push out 14.1 with bug fixes a few weeks later. And then comes the big one, 14.2. That's the version Musk says will have that full sentient feel. It's a classic strategy, right? Release, test, fix, and then expand.
But let's be real for a second. Getting to a world full of robotaxis is about a lot more than just writing clever code. There are some massive hurdles they still have to clear. Technically, the system has to handle every bizarre edge case you can think of, and a million you can't. Then there's the whole regulatory nightmare of convincing government agencies that this thing is safe. And maybe the biggest mountain to climb of all is public trust.
So there's no doubt about it, FSD version 14 is a monumental leap forward. It's pushing the absolute boundaries of what we thought a car could do. But it also leaves us with a much, much bigger question. As this technology gets exponentially better, as it becomes more human-like, the challenge isn't just about the engineering anymore. The real question is whether we are ready. Are our roads, our laws, and just our society ready for what comes next?